So welcome to the special education event. My name is Kelly Kane. I am a nursing consultant with policy and practice at the College of Registered Nurses. With me today is Brad Walsh, Director of Registration, Julie Wells, Research and Policy Officer, and Michelle Carpenter, Nursing Consultant with Policy and Practice. And we have a very informative education event this week, particularly for those nurses who currently have an inactive or a non-practicing membership. However, a lot of the information we will review about updating your profile and tips for logging your learning activities is certainly applicable to all registrants. Hi, Michelle, Brad, and Julie. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks.
Yep, good.
Good.
Good. Brad, we'll get started with you for the first question. We wanted to provide education to registrants about reinstatement and the new reinstatement module in Alinity. And reinstatement is a new term for us at the college, so of course it's new to registrants as well. Can you tell us what is meant when we say reinstatement?
Sure. Yeah. So welcome everybody. So in terms of reinstatement, as Kelly said, yes, that's something a new term we're using, but the process is pretty much an application to return to nursing practice after you've had a period of time where you've been without a license. Reinstatement can be used for individuals who are been gone from the province for a number of years, have been practicing elsewhere and are coming back. Or it can be for someone who, is currently holding a non-practicing membership and say been off on a parental leave or another type of leave, and during the course of the licensure year, they are returning to practice, and that's outside of licensure renewal. So renewal happens between January and March, and you're renewing for the upcoming licensure year. Reinstatement is, generally if you're coming back outside of a period of renewal and you're needing to reinstate or regain your license to practice.
That was great,
Perfect.
Brad. Thank you. Would you be able to take us through a reinstatement application?
Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to go through a couple of different steps. Just bear with me. All right, so we have our member portal or our college portal, also called Alinity. And just bear with me a second there now, because I'm also going to open up the college's website. So on our college's website, we also have the member portal where you'll go to do your licensure renewal, log your CCP or continuing competency program information, where you update your profile. So when you click on the member portal, it will bring you to the college's portal. And you'll log in. As a current registrant of the college, you would have your email address, you would have your account set up. So you'll be logging in. If you're someone who's returning home to the province after being gone for a period of time, you may need to reach out to the registration department so we can either reactivate your account, because we don't want individuals to be signing up for multiple accounts. So your username is your login. It is not your CRNL registration number. Your email address is linked with your profile. So you would be your login is your email address. So I said, if you're someone who's returning to the province after being gone for a couple of years, if you haven't used the Alinity system, which we've been using now for over a year, then we need to reactivate your account so that you can make sure you're using your correct CRNL number that you would have retained after being gone for a period of time. So if you have any questions about the login process, or if it's your first time, definitely reach out to registration by phone or by email. All right, so as I said, your login is your email address, and then if you're someone with a non-practicing membership, you would have this information. You would have renewed your non-practicing for April 1st, and you're now coming back at another time of the year. Say this time of the year now, you're returning from a leave, and you're going to go into reinstate. So just bear with me now as I log in. All right, so what happens is if it's you need to log in to the account, oftentimes for the multi-factor authentication, which is a security feature to make sure that you are the correct person logging in, it will send a code to your email address. And you're going to need to go to your email, copy that code. It'll be a series of about 5 or 6 characters, and you'll need to copy that in and paste it into before you're able to log into your account. So it didn't happen for me there. It makes you do that every so often to verify your identity. So if that was the case, I would have had to go to my email, copy that code, go back to the Alinity page and paste it in before it would let me log in. So this is what the inside of the portal looks like. And you can see there now for this account, we're using one of our test accounts. It says my status is inactive. I don't hold a current membership or I don't hold a current practicing license. So I'm inactive. If you had a non-practicing membership for the current year, your status would say non-practicing. So you'll see here to the right-hand side of your screen, there's an option there to reinstate practicing. So if you're eligible for to go ahead with the reinstatement process, you can initiate that yourself without having to contact the college and saying, I want to reinstate, what do I need to do? With our new Alinity system, nurses are able to initiate things, on their own without having to contact the registration department. And reinstatement could be one of those things. So you'll see here, I want to reinstate. The option that I'm getting is to reinstate a practicing license and we are currently in the 24-25 licensure year. So I want to reinstate. I'm coming back in a couple of weeks' time, and I need to get my license in order before I can return to practice. So it gives you a little bit of information here. So at any point in time where you see some information on the screen, please read through carefully, as it sometimes gives instructions and other critical information that you need to know as it relates to whatever process you're trying to complete. So here, if you have an expired or elapsed practicing RN license or non-practicing membership and you wish to reinstate or return to practice, please click the reinstate button. If you have an expired or lapsed interim license or provisional registration, so that's a different type of status, we're asking those individuals to contact the college. And if you are a nurse practitioner who is reinstating their license, that you should contact the college as well before starting the reinstatement application process. And then we have a message here around logging your CCP. And today we're going to get into quite a bit of the presentation is going to be around logging of your continuing competence program or your CCP activities in My Learning. So there's a little note there that says, if you say for someone we're non-practicing and you've continued to do your learning and log it during the time you've been off and not held a practicing license, you're doing that in My Learning. So there's a highlighted note there to say, if you've already logged some learning for the year, don't start reinstatement. Please contact the college, as we have some, we'll have to follow up with you to extract that information, provide it to you in a format where you don't lose it, and you're able then to copy and paste it into your learning reinstatement CCP module that's within reinstatement. Before I do launch reinstatement, we would encourage you to get your Canadian Nurses Protective Society or CNPS professional liability protection in advance of doing your reinstatement. If you're coming back now, if you're not coming back for a couple of months and you're starting to log your CCP, that's fine. But if you're wanting to get your license reinstated in the next short period of time, go get your Canadian Nurses Protective Society, as you'll have that step done, and it will make the reinstatement process a lot smoother and quicker. So for the CNPS, you'll need to go to the CNPS website, which I have here, cnps.ca. You're going to click the Join or Renew. That will then open this screen, which you then, for CNPS, that's our liability, as I had mentioned, it's specific to the province or territory. So you will be choosing Newfoundland and Labrador. For this purposes, I'm a registered nurse reinstating my practicing license. I will choose registered nurse. Then I'll have to log in to my CMPS profile, which if you've held a practicing license within the last period of time, you would already have a CMPS that will be set up with your email address and your own CNPS password to get into their system to obtain your liability protection. If you have any troubles or questions about CMPS, you need to contact CMPS directly. They are the only one who can answer questions about their system and or their services. But as you know, CMPS liability is a requirement for licensure, so a license would not be issued unless the college verifies that you hold the appropriate protection. All right, so I go to CMPS, I go through their process, I log in, I purchase my CMPS. The CMPS fee for RNs is $68 plus HST. So I'll complete that transaction. So then I'll return to the college's portal to then launch my reinstatement. Okay, so I click on reinstate. And we'll open up the reinstatement application. So you can see reinstatement is 3 steps essentially: profile update, CCP, and then reinstatement. And we're going to go through each of those now. For anyone who's done a licensure renewal application in Alinity, it's the same process: profile update, CCP, reinstate, or renewal it's called. So it looks very similar, and that's on purpose and by design. So your profile update, you need to carefully read through all the information to ensure it's accurate and correct. So we'll start off by your name. If you've had a legal change of name, you can upload documentation right here to the application. So if you've recently got married or you've had other legal name change, you can upload the request there with the legal document for your name change, and the college will then process it on our end. So you're verifying that your name is correct, making sure that your address is correct as well. And you can update anytime throughout the year you have a change in your name or a change in your address or change in employment information. You can initiate a profile update in the system. And within the current regulations, there is a provision that does say that it is a nurse's responsibility to ensure all their information is current and up to date. Some of those things have to be done within 30 days of the effective date of the change. That's in legislation. It's not college policy. Regulations are set by government and, along with the college's council, so it is legislation. So ensuring that you update that information in a timely manner is critical. So verifying your address, verifying your contact information. If you had to have a change in your email address, you can do so here. The college will verify some information before it updates your address in the system. I would encourage you to always use an email address that is one that you check on a regular basis. Email is the primary method of communication that we have with our registrants, whether that be questions or anything related to your renewal or your reinstatement, anything related to all communications that you receive, including communications such as Regulation Matters, our newsletter, or notes in the practice team, or other critical information that we need to get to registrants is done electronically. So making sure it's an email address that you use on a regular basis. If you are someone who's going on a parental leave and you're using your work email, then you may or may not have access to that work email while you're off on leave. So it's always a good idea to make sure that it's an email address that's personal and a primary email address for you.
And Brad, I think that's a good time just to mention there where you're talking about emails for registrants, not to ignore any correspondence via email from the college, because like Brad said, it contains very important information. We don't send an email unless it's something that registrants need to be aware of.
In terms of your education, where this is a test account, if your entry-level nursing education would already be in the system. I'm a Center for Nursing Studies grad, so it would say there, but you can add additional education. So let's just say you've gone on and you've done your degree, or you've completed a master's education since the last time you had a license. You can update that information. So I'm just going to quickly add in here. I'm going to put baccalaureate degree. As you start to type, one of the features of Alinity is that as you start to type, anything that matches in the system should appear as an option for you. So I started typing Center for Nursing Studies, nursing. So you can add education. If you needed to add multiple, you can click to add another, and you could add additional nursing education. It should be your nursing education that we enter here. Other jurisdictions, so if you hold a nursing license or registration in another province, territory, state, or country, you are required to notify the college of all places where you do hold nursing licensure, so you can add jurisdictions here. I'm not going to add, I'll start to add one here just so you can see what is required, your registration number, and we have information in here. So let's just say I hold a license in Prince Edward Island, and then the effective date of that license. You can see these little red boxes throughout where you're able to delete an entry. So I would say, oh, I'm no longer registered there. My license is expired. You're only required to put your current. So I'm going to delete that, and then it removes it. Okay. Employment information, and here we've got Julie on our call, and Julie is our research and policy officer, and Julie is our guru when it comes to all of our data. We get requests from all different sorts of researchers wanting to do research, but a lot of government, a lot of this information we're actually required to collect and provide to different organizations such as the Canadian Institute for Health Information. So your employment information is critical that it be up to date and current. So I'm just going to start there. So take some time to read through. Anywhere where there's a gray box, text box, it's giving you more information about that particular field. And this is so as it relates to the employment for the 23-24 year. So click on the drop down. It gives you any information about the status that you are. These are all set by the Canadian Institute for Health Information. So a lot of the options we don't have necessarily full control, because for national reporting purposes, all regulators across the country have the same options. So that's, so for national reporting purposes. So I'm going to say my status is that I'm employed in nursing. And now I don't have an employer on file. So I'm going to want to add an employer. If you did have an employer that was previously on file, say from last year, that information would get carried over. Am I correct in saying that? Julie can chime in at any point now if there's anything else to add. But your employment information would come over if there was anything there from previously.
As long as you didn't enter an end date in the last time you did a profile update.
Thank you, Julie. So if you've changed employers, Julie just made an important point there. If you've changed employers, you've left an employer and gone to a new employer, that when you go to add that new employer to your profile, and which I said you can do anytime throughout the year, through the profile update, you can also then put an end date on that previous employer that you just finished with, okay? And that shows, I'm no longer with that employer. And as you know, the college moved to a self-report of practice hours model last year. So making sure your information is up to date on the system is critical for when the time comes to do a renewal. If that employer that you were with there last year, you didn't have listed, you're not going to be able to self-report hours for that employer. And we want to make sure that all of your practice hours get reported, because under the legislation, nurses are required to practice a minimum number of hours within a period of time in order to be eligible for a practicing license. All right. So, and you can add multiple employees. You can have many, many employers. If you worked with 3 different places, you can add 3 different employers. So, and like all the other fields, as you start to type, I'm just going to say health sciences, right? So I started typing health SC. These are the options that currently sit within our system as being recognized employers that you can choose from. So if I chose the Health Sciences Center, then these are all, anywhere where you see a red asterisk, those are required fields. So, and these are all, as I said, definitions that are set by the Canadian Institute for Health Information, or CIHI. So I'm going to say I'm part-time with this employer. Preferred employment status, I want to be part-time. My employment role, you see there's different options there. If there is ever an other, you will be prompted to type in some additional information, but I'm going to say for this one, I'm a staff nurse.
Brad, can I just cut in there and
Yeah.
can you just point out why, because the health sciences is a part of NLHS, why wouldn't you use Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services? And I know there's a reason, but for our listening audience.
Yeah. So NLHS, as you know, is the provincial health authority. So we're required to collect information that is related to your site. NLHS is not a site. NLHS is the parent sort of organization. So we have information in our back end linked that, NLHS, General Hospital Health Sciences Center. So NLHS is not itself the employer. You could be, if you're at corporate office, we would have a set, we would have the corporate office location. We need the site specific information. Anything else to add to that, Julie?
Nope, you got it. We have to submit the postal code for all of the employment sites, and so that's why we need a specific, your specific site.
Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification, Brad.
So, the practice area, I'm just going to say emerge, but there are options there to choose from. There's no required fields here, but if you did want to put in your work phone, you could. Date started, I'm going to put in, I started there in 2020, 06, 01. I'm still employed there, so I'm not going to put in an end date. These contract type, these are some new fields that got added within the last little while as it relates to CIHI, and there are some changes coming as well for the new year that CIHI has expanded on what they call their data dictionary. Data dictionary is all the things that we're seeing here, all the options that are coming up, and CIHI is collecting new information as it relates to, you'll see here, this is a new question that just got added this year. Is this organization a staffing agency or a travel nursing agency? So that's a new question that CIHI has asked all regulators to start collecting that information for reporting purposes. So I'm going to say, no, that is not. If the employer does not sit within our employer table or where we have the information stored, you can manually type in the employer name and the address in that box below, this box, text box here. So because that option is there, I'm going to quickly say I'm going to add a second one just for I was looking for one of the clinics up the coast. Main community clinic, casual staff nurse. Right. So that's the profile update. So ensuring your contact information, including your email address, your schooling information, your employment information is all captured and is accurate before you proceed to the next step. So you can, yeah.
Sorry, Brad, I just want to ask you a question, and it might not be applicable, but if I was a registered nurse who worked at the health sciences, and I'm just coming back now, and I had to fill in that information, my date that started is when I started working there. It's not the date that I'm returning to work after a leave, right? It's the date that I started that position at the health sciences.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's right.
Perfect.
Yeah. And if you were, Julie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Let's just say I was, worked in the operating room at the health sciences, and then partway through the year, I got a new position and I moved over to the OR at St. Clair's. So it's a different site, yes, but my employer is still NLHS, the parent organization. You could leave your employment start date as the date you started with that employer. Am I correct in saying that too, Julie?
You could, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go next. Save for later would allow you the opportunity. I got this step done. I'm going to come back now in an hour or two or next day, and I want to continue. You could click save for later, and it will save that information for you. Withdraw is to withdraw reinstatement, so essentially cancel the application and return back to the main screen. So I'm going to go next. So you'll see now here along the cross at the top, it has profile update has been checked, meaning I've completed that step. I'm now moved on to step 2, which is my CCP. So read through here the information, giving you instructions about reinstatement and your CCP. And just highlight note there that when you're completing CCP for reinstatement, your learning activities must be within 12 months of your return to work date. Meaning, let's just say I'm returning to work next week, then my 12 months would go back until November 2023. Okay, it can't be back to May of 2023 because that's outside of the 12-month period. Okay, so it's 12 months from the time you are of your return to work or your return to practice date. Okay. Anything else to highlight there before we get into?
Not particular to CCP, Brad, but I just want to take a moment to highlight how the green box is up there to the right. Your profile update has been saved, and that's a really good feature in Alinity, and you'll see it as Brad works through CCP as well. But it's a really good confirmation that it's been saved because we've heard of some registrants timing out and losing some of the information that they've put in there. But when you see that green confirmation, then you rest assured that the information that you have there has been saved, and you'll see that again once Brad updates his the CCP in this example.
All right, so I'm just going to, it'll say there how many hours you're required to complete in order to reinstate. So it's generally 24 hours. Hours can sometimes be prorated depending on how long a period of time you've been away, and it's prorated at 2 hours per month. But if you're someone who's been away for a year, then you will be required to complete 24 hours upon returning to practice, okay? So it would specify individually how many hours you have to complete in order to reinstate. So I'm just going to copy some information here off to the side of the screen. I'm ready to paste into. So you're required to add the date you've completed, the number of hours for that particular activity and minutes, the activity description, what did you do, and there's a maximum and minimum number of characters, which you'll see underneath that field, and then your learning impact. What did you learn and what immediate impact did this have on your practice? Okay. So I'm just going to choose now. I'm going to say this was this activity I did in December of 2023. So that falls within my 12-month window. I'm going to say it was a 2-hour activity, 0 minutes. So you can type this information in, or if you had it saved in your own working document, a Word document, you can copy and paste. And that's what I'm doing here. I've got my CCP on the other screen there, all the information. So I'm copying and pasting directly from there right into there. So I got the activity. It was a webinar that I attended. And then my immediate learning impact. Okay. So that's one activity. So
Brad, can I just point out, because I know that it may be a little bit long, but you can show how if you hit on the arrow in the learning impact there that you have, if you hit that little box at the end, you can pull down so that you can see fully all of the information that you've put into that learning impact.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to add a new activity. So each time you need to add a new activity, you finish one, you move to the next, click add. That will then open up the new fields you're required to enter. So my next activity was done in 2024, June 1st. And this was a 12, I'm just going to, for purposes, I'm going to put a 12-hour activity. So I've added here was a conference, a day of a conference attended. And my immediate impact of learning. Sheldon said so. Can open that up and be able to see. So now I've got 2 activities logged. I can save for, if I save for later, that information will then see, you can see the green up at the corner says your continuing education plan has been saved. It has updated the number of hours that I have already logged to be 14. So I've got another 10 hours to log, and my status is not met. I haven't yet met my 24 hours. Okay, so I'm going to add one more activity here now. So I will click add again. Got to scroll down. That will open up the 3rd one.
Brad, I just want to mention, because sometimes I've received calls from registrants when they add, it goes to the bottom. I think they're thinking that it's going to be, right at the top, and then, they think that they don't have a field to enter their stuff. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, because when you hit add, you just got to scroll down a little bit because it'll go to the bottom.
Yeah, and I'd just like to mention in that learning impact that Brad is copying and pasting, it's really important for you to, detail what was the knowledge that you gained or the competency that you gained, and what was that immediate impact on your professional practice or on your practice setting. But we have other resources on our website that registrants can read more about or listen to in archived events about how to complete the CCP steps.
Okay, you can now see I've got 25 hours logged, and it allowed me to add, because my last activity was a couple of more hours, so it's gone beyond, but the minimum that you were required to complete is 24. So now I have to log my summative evaluation. So, as it says, describe the overall impact that all of the learning activities you have logged have had on your nursing practice. Consider how your practice changed and how the learning supported your practice, okay? So you have additional characters you're able to do for the summative evaluation. It allows you to type more than 300, more than 1,000. I don't recall what the maximum number is. I don't know if.
Can't recall off the top. I want to say 3,000, but I can't
3,000.
remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think you're right, Julie. That sounds correct. So it does give you additional text, so you're able then to copy and put in your summative evaluation. Okay, so I can go save for later, or if I went next, now my status here at the top screen or the top bar has turned to met. So I have met the requirements of CCP. I've done my 24 hours and I've done my summative evaluation. So I have now completed that. Okay. So if, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you are planning to return to nursing practice, let's say in a month's time, you're able to start reinstatement, launch it, and then start logging your CCP. You might want to, you got all your activities done, you got everything sort of gathered at home, you want to type it in. You can do so, and then you can return to finish reinstatement when you're ready to return to practice. Okay. So it's going to scroll down to the bottom and then hit next again.
I just wanted to point out that the status change from not met to met is based on your number of hours. So it's not based on completing your summative evaluation, which is still a requirement, but it will change green to met once you hit the 24 hours. You still have to do your evaluation at the end, though.
And Julie, remind me, the summative evaluation doesn't appear until you have all your hours?
That's how it works on renewal, but on reinstatement, it's always there.
It's always there on reinstatement. Yes, okay, perfect, thanks.
All right, now you can see we have a check mark in step 2, which was CCP. That has been completed. We're on to the final reinstatement step. So as I had mentioned also at the beginning, I encourage you to get your Canadian Nurses Protective Society liability protection done before you do your reinstatement. If you didn't, Now you got to this step and you thought, oh, I forgot to do my CMPS. I'm going to need it. You can actually go from here. See, and if you click on CMPS, it will open up in a new screen. Then you're going to have to log into your CMPS account, purchase your CMPS, making sure your registration number. If you're ever unsure what your registration number is, when you get to this step right here, right directly above, it has your registration number. So if you're unsure, when you go, because you need your registration number to be correct when you purchase your CMPS, because there's an exchange of information between our systems that verifies you have coverage, and that's linked to your registration number, okay? So I've done my CMPS, I've purchased it, I've got that receipt. There's a button here to click me. It's doing that check right now. Our systems are speaking back and forth. And if I have my coverage, this here will turn a green text, which says, the college has received the record of your professional liability protection purchase, okay? If you did not, you tried to click that step, it would give you red text saying the college does not have confirmation and you need to complete the CMPS step. You'll be unable to submit your application to us unless the CMPS has been confirmed by our systems, okay? So then we have a number of declarations that you are required to do here. So every year as part of licensure renewal and reinstatement, you're required to declare if you have been convicted of an offense. If you answer yes to any of these questions, it does ask you for some additional detail. If you do answer yes to any of these questions, when you submit your application, you can be expected that college staff will be reaching out to you via email to get some additional information regarding the reason why you answered yes to that question, okay? We're going to say no. This relates to if you do hold a license in another province or territory or country, is that license under investigation? Has it been suspended or revoked, or are there any disciplinary proceedings, or are there any conditions on your license and or like registration? I'm going to answer no to all those, and then we have our declarations. Okay, so these are required. Talk about I will adhere to the standards of practice and code of ethics. Here I mentioned earlier beginning about saying there was a section of the regulations that talks about making sure your information is current and up to date when you notify the college of any changes within 30 days. So we're referencing that section of the regulations there to make sure you're aware of that requirement. Consent to verify any information, and then we have our privacy statement as well about how the college uses your information from a regulatory standpoint. Okay.
Brad, I just wanted to, you missed a little piece there, the notification. You have to notify us immediately of a criminal conviction.
Yes, thank you, Julie. Yes, that's right. Okay. So once I've got all of my declarations done, I'll be able to submit my application. I could save it for later. Let's just say, you know, I'm come back in 2 weeks. I'm not coming back for another couple of weeks, but I wanted to have everything done. You could save for later. Otherwise, generally, you will be hitting submit to submit your application. And I'll tell you what will happen then from that point of view. So I've submitted my reinstatement. It returned you to sort of the home landing page inside Alinity. There was a quick screen that popped up there with a message. I didn't get to see it, but essentially said your reinstatement has been submitted successfully. If there was some type of error message, you would get a red box with an error message in there. If there was ever anything, you know, if you couldn't submit properly, then just you would encourage you to contact the registration department and we can assist you with finding out why there might have been an error. In order to proceed through each step, if you had questions that were unanswered and it was a required field, it would not let you proceed through the application step by step, and it would highlight that you missed a section. There was something you didn't complete. So it's, you know, any required fields will need to be completed before you can submit. So the form has now been submitted to the college. So registration staff on a daily basis are checking to see who's applying for reinstatement, and then processing accordingly. If there was ever any question about your application or you answered a certain way, we would follow up with you. We can also return the application to you. So let's just say, for example, you did go and only put in NLHS as your employer. College staff could possibly see that and look and say, oh, no, we need to know what particular site this nurse is working at, and they can return your application to you, and you will be notified via email, and you will be prompted to log back in. We can also have on the application itself, there can be, you can have back and forth with a registration staff right on the application as it relates to questions about the reinstatement. So registration staff, as I said, are regularly checking the system to look to see who has applied for reinstatement. Everything is in order. They would approve that reinstatement, and then it would be returned to you for payment. Are you able to approve that on your end, Julie, so we could show
Yeah, I did it
everybody
while
what
you
it
were
looks like?
talking.
Thank you. Julie's good. All right, so I'm just going to hit home again because I might need to refresh my screen, which I did. Okay. Now, if I was to log, I would be notified that, via email, there's now been an invoice that has been notified that I need to make payment. So you're not required to make payment on the submission of the application. Only when the college approves that application will you be prompted for payment. So when you submit your application, you are not instantly approved for a license. College staff need to do our piece, and then you'll be notified of that invoice. So you'll see here now I have a new part that has appeared on my home screen, and that's called My Invoices. So this is where the licensure fee, in this particular case, the licensure fee is $412.47 because there was a lapsed fee on this particular case. The lapsed fee can be applied to accounts under certain circumstances. If you had a non-practicing membership for the current year and you were then reinstating to a practicing license, your fee would be reduced. You had already paid the non-practicing fee, so you would pay a reduced fee outside of the full license. So then if I go to pay my invoice, I will click on the pay option. I'll see here, this is the practicing license fee, other services, for a total, and then I would click pay. You'll be prompted for payment information, so pay with a credit card. We also, the Visa debits are also accepted as a method of payment as well. So I would pay this information, or pay the invoice, sorry. Put in your credit card number, expiry date, and pay the fee. And then I think Julie might be able to pay it on our end. Oh, no, it's okay. We're using the live site, so we can't issue a license to one of our test records. It has to be. So once the invoice is paid, the license is instantly issued. College staff does not need to engage again. It does not need to be manually processed on our end. As soon as you pay that fee, you do have a practicing license. Your status there in this section here under the active permit, you would see would change to practicing with an effective date of today if I was paying the invoice today. And then I would know, all right, I now hold a practicing license. You also then would be able to verify, or your employer could verify if they're needing to know that you're licensed, would be going to the college's member search, also called our public directory. And then you could start typing in your name. So I'm just going to look up my name here, search by your name, and then it shows with my registration number that I hold a practicing license, and then the effective date and expiry date of that license as well. So that's how you and your employer can also verify you hold a practicing license. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to stop sharing there now. And if there's anything else Julie or Michelle or Kelly wanted to add.
Well, Brad, there's a question, and we were going to leave questions to the end, but there's one that might be pertaining to the learning that you just provided. The individual asks, can they print the learning for their own records?
So when and Judy can correct me if I'm wrong, when your application is approved, your CCP does turn into a PDF that is saved on your My Documents. So you are able to, after it's submitted and your license has been approved, yes, you can return to the college's your profile, go under the My Documents section, and your previous CCP will be in a PDF. So you can save that, download it, print a copy at home. So yes.
Great, thanks so much. Well, that was great, Brad. Your summary of how to complete a reinstatement application was wonderful. Now we're quickly going to move on to the CCP audit, because as registrants are completing the My Learning or the CCP component in reinstatement, there's some tips that are really important. So we're just going to have a general discussion now about the CCP audit. So Kelly, I understand the college's CCP audit for the 23-24 licensure year is completed. And generally speaking, what were some of the more common reasons that registrants needed to resubmit their learning plan?
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So there was definitely some commonalities among registrants who did need to resubmit their learning plan. The biggest one for sure was the learning impact statements. So registrants would include everything that they learned within that learning activity. That information was generally there, but it was that learning impact statement, the second piece of that was commonly missing. So, for example, because with this CCP now everything counts, so it could be something like they looked up a medication at the bedside, and they would include everything that they learned about that new med, but it didn't say what was the immediate impact on their practice. And it doesn't need to be a very long sentence by any means. But like, for example, so if we were sticking with the, if the medication, if it was a brand new medication, maybe you work in oncology and, you work with chemo and it's a new certain type of medication that you require to do a little bit of research on, include all the information that you learned, but then you could say that you now have that up-to-date knowledge so that you can safely and competently administer that medication to the patients you care for. So that would be an example of a learning impact statement. Or, it could be the same thing with a new piece of equipment in the OR. A lot of registrants would say include exactly what they learned about that piece of equipment, but again, forget to include that immediate impact on their practice. And again, it would be very similar now. You have that up-to-date knowledge and best practice related to how to safely use this piece of equipment in the OR, which is where you work. So that shows that immediate impact on your practice setting. And it could be perhaps you're doing a course. You might be doing your master's in nursing, or maybe another sort of formal course that you wanted to include, and that immediate impact would be on your professional practice. So it could be about that career ladder as well. So you may not apply it to your role right now, but you may wish to, you may want to have a job in administration, so in management, and you may be doing some of those courses to help you along in that. As long as you include that information clearly, you wouldn't have any problems there with your learning plan. So that was probably the biggest one, is the learning impact statement. And also a common one is the preceptorship. So I just, a few moments ago, I said that almost everything counts. And that's true. Almost everything does count for CCP. But when you are acting as a preceptor, so let's say you have a nursing student, or if you have a new hire in your practice setting, the time that you spent with that new nurse, or maybe a nursing student, that does not count towards CCP, because in that moment that you are with that individual, you are teaching them what you already know. So there's no new knowledge being gained. However, you may have to do a lot of prep work to effectively be a preceptor. So you may, you may be brushing up on all the policies. Perhaps you're learning a little bit about adult learning. All of those activities that you're doing to prepare yourself to be a preceptor, that counts. Similarly to if you are doing a presentation at a conference. Let's say the presentation's for an hour at a conference. You wouldn't include that hour in your learning plan that you are giving that information, but you could include all of that prep work, which, it would most likely be a lot more than an hour that you're giving a presentation. You would include all that prep work. So that's what would count, because that's where you're acquiring that new knowledge. Okay, so that was definitely the two most common reasons where resubmission was required. And all of this information plus examples, further examples, if if you're interested in looking at how to write learning impact statements, how to write a summative evaluation is there as well. That is available on the college's website. If you go into practice, you'll see continuing competency program there. And if you click on that, you'll have access to the CCP guide as well as the framework that you can read. And reading those two documents also counts towards your CCP. So there's some resources there available to you.
Thanks, Kelly. Really good points. And as you pointed out, that learning impact doesn't have to be a long, but there are, a minimum characters that's required in that box. And the key is that it may only be 2 sentences, but we want to see that two-part question answered in the learning impact. So really important. If you got any questions, you can certainly reach out to Kelly and I, or go to our resources. So Kelly, aside from learning impact statements and preceptorship, do you have any other tips for registrants when they're completing their learning plans?
Yes. For learning plans, it's a good idea. You should not lump all of your learning activities in one entry. So let's say if you just put, today's date and you put 24 hours, and then you included everything in one entry, that wouldn't be appropriate. You should break that down into however many learning activities it was. Now, that's not to say, let's say if you did a 2-day conference somewhere, you don't necessarily need to break those 2 days down. You could include that as one learning activity because it is the same event, and you can highlight the things that you've learned and include your learning impact statement. However, you may choose, I noticed Brad, when he did his example, he was at a conference, he included day 2 of that conference in his learning plan because, there may be reasons for that, but perhaps that's the learning there is what you wanted to include on your learning plan. So, you could break it down day 1, day 2, or you could lump them together because it is the same activity. But if you're doing, let's say, 10 different learning activities, maybe you did a conference, maybe you read some journal articles, you looked up some medications, you attended doctor's rounds, and you were learning about new illnesses, you wouldn't lump those all together. That would be inappropriate.
Yeah, and I guess there, Kelly, it's that you're being asked to identify, right? What was the new knowledge that you gained or the competencies you gained, and what was that immediate impact? So you're not able to articulate what was that immediate impact if you lump like 10 activities all together, right? Because we're asking for the immediate impact of each of those learning activities. So that's a really good point. Anything else to add?
Yeah, there was, it wasn't, that common, but what we do see sometimes are nursing tasks in learning plans. So it could be you're working a night shift and every Sunday night the crash cart gets checked. Checking that crash cart is considered a nursing task and not a learning activity. Now, if you were to look up medications on the crash cart that because you don't use them very often, you're unfamiliar with them, and if you wanted to look those up, that learning would count. But the actual task of checking the BLS or the crash cart, that wouldn't be an appropriate learning activity. Similarly to doing quality controls, like on a glucometer machine, that nursing task wouldn't be considered a learning activity for CCP. Also, for the learning plans, we're after seeing a lot of registrants copying and pasting information into the learning plan. And I mean, I'm not saying that you absolutely cannot copy and paste, because we're all about being efficient. I understand that. But sometimes when you copy and paste, there's symbols that I don't know why that happens, but must be maybe from a website or something. It might be, I don't know, the coding or the programming or something. But when it comes over, there's symbols in the words, and you can tell that it wasn't read through and fixed. So, and also is a lot of information that is not required sometimes when you do that copy and paste over. So if you were to attend a conference and you wanted to include, the information that was provided before you registered, and okay, this is what I'm going to learn, so this is what I learned in that conference. Make sure you have a read over, take out what's not applicable, because we're only looking for what new knowledge was gained and that immediate impact on your practice. And now there are, those maximum characters that's going to limit that ability to do that. But just a reminder to look over what you have submitted, because of course we want it to be professional as well. And finally, I guess what I would like to say about CCP and some tips would be to start early. You never know what issues you may run into. Hopefully you won't run into any, but there may be some glitches along the way. So the earlier you start, the better. And the way it is, like CCP is everyday learning counts. So it's meant to, if I just did a half-hour education session at my place of work, I can easily log into Alinity, record that right then and there, and then it's done, and just make sure that it's saved. And so it's about logging throughout the year. Now we know that there's some registrants that may choose to sit down in one moment and log everything, but I think it's a good idea to get into logging throughout the year, because then it's not such a daunting task when you're going to go sit down to do it. And you're like, oh my goodness, I got to log 24 hours of learning now. But when you pick at it throughout the year, it's certainly more manageable to do. And like I said, technology comes issues. So you want to have as much time to address those issues as possible.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Kelly, because, you can use your mobile device. Like if you're attending a session, as soon as that session's done, you can pull out your iPhone or your Android phone and record that right into your Alinity profile immediately. So really good point there. So that's some great tips for registrants as they are getting ready to start, and they're recording their learning in My Learning or into the Reinstatement module. So thanks for all those tips. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And we do have some registrants that do contact us from time to time with questions. But Michelle, if if there's anyone listening today, what are registrants supposed to do if they have any issues, and who do they contact?
Sure. So if you're logging your CCP requirements or your learning activities in My Learning or in your Reinstatement module, you can certainly reach out to myself as a nursing consultant, or Kelly, who's the other nursing consultant here, and we're responsible for that continuing competency program. So certainly reach out to us. But if you have an issue related to like verifying your Alinity account or your profile, then you should reach out to registration at crnnl.ca, or you can call 709-753-6040 and go through the telephone tree to reach registration. And Kelly, for our contact information, that is available on the website for people to look up. And we're only too glad to answer any questions that registrants have. And as people are learning reinstatement now, I'm finding a lot of registrants are reaching out to us to find out how do we go about reinstatement. And a common one that we've been getting is they've started capturing their learning in My Learning in their Alinity member portal, but they actually have to go into reinstatement. So anytime you have a question related to reinstatement as well, they can reach out to us. A lot of times it may be a registration question with reinstatement, but if it's how to capture that learning, they can reach out to us.
Perfect. Thank you. So that is, what we have planned for our education session today. And I don't see any further questions in the Q&A or the chat box. I'm just doing a double check. So Brad and Julie and Michelle, I very much thank you for coming today and providing that valuable information. I think it was, even as Brad was working through the reinstatement application, it was definitely good for me as well, who will be maybe answering some of those questions. So it was very beneficial.
Kelly, I'd just like to mention that our season 4 for the College Connection podcast is starting soon, so stay tuned. And we have a notification in our notes from the practice team regarding that. But season 4 coming soon. And you can access all of our archived events and podcasts under our practice webpage under practice resources, practice. Continuing competency, and then the education and events tab on that web page. So just want to reiterate where you can find those archived events and podcasts. So
excellent. Thank you, Michelle.